So over the next 6 weeks, we're going to talk about how do we win when it comes to relationships? How do we make sure that we're successful in our relationships? And so to do that, we're actually using content from 2 different sources as we move ahead. One of the sources is the Bible. And we're looking at saying, okay, God, what do you say to us about doing relationships and doing relationships well? And so we're pulling instructions right out of the Bible. Secondly, we're using content from Dr. John Van Epp, who actually pulled all of his material from the Bible as well, but he packaged it in a way that is just so accessible and so easy to understand. And he takes God's instructions and he puts them together in a model that I think is brilliant in helping us win at our relationships. Before I introduce you to John's content, I need to tell you what winning relationships is not. What it does not mean to win at relationships. It does not mean that after this series of studies, you're going to win every argument you have with other people around you. That's not what we're talking about. It doesn't mean that you're always going to win and get your way in every relationship. It doesn't mean that things are always going to go your way. So don't misunderstand when we talk about winning at relationships. This isn't a series about how to get your way all the time. Instead, this is a series about developing skills that over time, the people that you have relationships in with your life, that those relationships will be rich, they'll be satisfying, and while they may still be challenging, you're going to find a sense of peace and you're going to find a sense of joy in being with each other. And so it doesn't mean always getting what you want. Doesn't always mean having your way. It means really doing what's best for the relationships. And I want to introduce this model to you. For some of you, it might be a review, but this is a model that's based on the belief that there are 5 bonds that are necessary in order to win at any relationship. And when I say any relationship, I mean any relationship. I mean, it could be a relationship between a mom and a son, a dad and a daughter, a husband and a wife. It could be friend to friend. It could be coworker to coworker, neighbor to neighbor, roommate to roommate. You name it, any relationship this model works in. And there are 5 bonds or connecting points in every relationship. Let me tell you about the 5 different bonds. The first one is know. And know is the idea, it's really what we factually know about one another. It's not what we imagine about one another, it's what we factually know. So when you meet somebody, you find out their name, you find out what they do, you get to know them. The more facts about them you know, the higher up you can pull the lever for knowledge. And it's all about what you truly know. And the way you gain knowledge about somebody is you spend time with them. The way you gain knowledge with somebody is you have more experiences with them. So the more experiences, the more time, the more conversations you have, the more you move the dial when it comes to knowing somebody. The dial for trust. Trust is a little bit different. Trust is the confidence that you have in somebody based on what you think or believe about them. So the idea of trust, it's not really who they are, it's who you think they are. And it's really based oftentimes more on your feeling, your perception of somebody. And so you may not know somebody all that well. You don't know a whole lot of information about them. But by what you've seen, by the way they behave, by things that are going on in their lives, you think, okay, I can assign them a high level of trust. I've got confidence in this person that they're going to come through for me, that they really truly are the good person that I think that they are. But it's all based on your belief. It's based on your thoughts and your feelings about that person. It's not based on fact. Sometimes this causes problems for us. This is why sometimes you have somebody that you put a high level of trust in, and you don't understand why everybody else around you is upset, saying there's no way you should trust that person. You go, oh, but I trust them implicitly. And they're saying, but you don't know them. You've assigned a high level of trust for them that shouldn't be there. They're all saying the trust level ought to be way down here. Get to know that person first. And you go, no, I trust them implicitly. And so you assign them a high level of trust. The third bond in each of our relationships is that of reliance. And this just measures how much the other person really meets my needs or you meet theirs. Can I trust this person to meet my needs? And so maybe you've got certain needs where maybe it's loneliness. Maybe you say, I just need a companion, and this person takes care of that need for companionship. I don't like eating alone. I don't like going to the movies alone. I just need somebody to be with me. They're a companion. Or maybe for you, it's a financial relationship. And you say, they provide the finances. They take care of the things that I need. And so I'm reliant on them for that. Maybe it's status. Maybe it's other things. But you're trusting in them. You're relying on them to do certain things in your relationship, to fulfill needs that you have in your relationship. Now, this goes 2 ways, though. And so they're relying on you as well. And sometimes it gets excessive. And so sometimes somebody gets too reliant on you. You go, this isn't a good situation. They're way, way too dependent on me. Other times you think that both of you are at the same level, you and the other person, you both have a great reliance relationship on each other, but the other person says, you know what, not so much. You're not really a priority in my life, at least not to the level you think that I am. And so you find them with a reliance level a little bit further down, but it's just, do they meet your needs? Can you depend on them to meet your needs? The fourth bond is that of commitment. Commitment is really the status of the relationship to the degree of loyalty or obligation or responsibility to the other. In other words, is there any formal commitment? Have you talked about commitment at all? Are you just kind of good friends and acquaintances? Then you're kind of down here. But oh no, we're best friends. Oh no, we're actually, if it's a dating relationship, we're more than dating, we're engaged. Beyond that, maybe we're going to be married, and so the commitment level goes up or down, depending on the status, the obligation that's there. Do I actually work for this person, or I just kind of, help them out on the side? And so this level goes up and down based on the level of commitment in a relationship. And again, sometimes one person in the relationship thinks commitment is high, only to find out the other person is going, no, not so much. And as long as we're having fun, as long as things are good in your life, yeah, I'm committed to you, but when things go bad, I'm out of here. And they move the level down. The last one is touch, and touch is pretty obvious. It just indicates how much touch we experience in our relationship, and touch can come in different levels. It can come in different ways. Don't only think of this as a sexual kind of touch, though that's a part of it, could be a part of it, but it could be a relationship where you get to know each other, you're comfortable with each other, and handshakes, you don't know each other well, so we shake hands, we get to know each other, give them a big hug, and touch is part of every relationship. So these are the 5 bonds, these are the levels. Maybe the greatest thing about this tool, besides being a mirror to look into your own relationships, is you can actually sit down with the people that you're in relationship with, and you can look at it and say, okay, so where are we? Where do you think we are? And you can talk about it, and you can kind of guide yourself through it. Now, a couple things that you need to understand. There's some laws that go along with this whole model. There's some rules that you need to understand. I'm just going to hit a couple of them right now. One is the law of slow leaks. And the law of slow leaks says that if you're not careful, these things will begin to leak, they'll begin to drop, and if you allow them to drop, it will either flatten out your relationship, or it can leak enough where it actually causes a blowout in the relationship and damages the relationship severely. So let me talk specifically about how to begin to pull the lever up when it comes to the area of knowledge. And to pull the area of knowledge up, it really comes down to a formula and understanding the formula of the 3 T's. 3 T's. And they're really real simple as we talk about the 3 T's. The first is just undistracted time to talk with each other. Just talk. Not rocket science. Not anything where you go, never thought of that before, but just taking time to talk with each other. You've got to communicate if you're going to have a healthy relationship, which means we've got to take time to talk. It needs to be frequent. It needs to be consistent, long enough to actually go deeper. So what you need to understand is where there is no communication, the relationship eventually dies. And again, you know that. You've drifted away from friends, not because anything bad happened. You just stopped talking to each other. You lost touch with each other. You feel it at home, where you go, I don't have the opportunity to talk to my kids anymore. As they've gotten older, it's harder and harder to actually sit down and talk with them. Or you feel disconnected to your husband. He's working long hours, you're working long hours, and you go, we just don't have time to talk at all. And you wonder, how does my wife really feel about our marriage? How does he, my boss, think about how I'm doing at work? And it's just because of a lack of communication. And some of you actually feel it in your relationship with God as well, because the same kind of thing happens in our relationship with God. And he feels so distant, so far away from you. And you go, God just seems like he's not even there anymore. And it's because maybe at one time, your relationship with God, you felt like you really knew him, but slow leaks have happened. And now you just go, I don't even know if he's there or not. And so the same thing happens. Time to talk with him. Time to listen with him in all of our relationships. And so communication is key. It means sitting down and just taking time and being consistent and frequent enough to go deeper. If you and I want to win at relationships, we've got to put down the phone, the iPad, the laptop, turn off the TV, the computer, and just talk. It doesn't seem like it should be that hard, but I know that it is. And it's a challenge, and it's got to be intentional. And the second of the 3 T's is something that Ruth and I have learned is very true for us, and it's been very critical for us. That's the importance of undistracted time together. Undistracted time together, and just spending time in diverse experiences. The last of the T's, the first is talking, the other is time together, the other is just time, and giving enough time to really begin to get to know somebody. There's a rule called the 90-day rule. It was a study that was conducted, came out of a study that was conducted over a 20-year period of time. And what the researchers found is that about half of all the people that they were studying that were dating, there was significant attraction, but within the first 90-day period of time, or within a 3-month period of time, there would be something drastic that would happen, a characteristic about the other person that was found out that hadn't been seen before that dramatically altered that relationship. One person would find out about something, and it was one of those gasp moments. I didn't know she was like that. I didn't know he was like that. And it significantly altered their perception of the other person, so much so that they said over half the relationships would end in that 90-day period. Bottom line, what they found is it just takes time for different things to surface, to rise to the surface. And we all initially put our best foot forward, and over time we relax, and then all of a sudden things pop up to the surface, and we hadn't seen that in the other person before. We didn't know she acted that way. We didn't know he would say that. We didn't know that's what he thought or believed. And so we begin to see things in the other person and how they get stressed out, and when they're stressed, how they treat you or how they talk to you, and they get angry with you over something you said or did, and you get to watch them in that moment of anger, or maybe in the moment of kind of restoring the relationship. And you get that anger, you get that emotion, but seeing it once isn't enough. Instead, you want to pull back and continue to wait and say, okay, is this a pattern here? You don't know if you just saw something that's the norm or it was an exception to the norm. And so you've got to allow enough time for it to repeat itself more than once so you can begin to understand the pattern of how a person's going to react. And so my challenge is put the 3 T's into action in your relationship today. Focus on knowing. Be intentional about spending time together on a regular basis where you're talking to one another and you're seeing each other in diverse situations, and you're spending quality and quantity time together. And see, here's the thing. You and I don't have to fail at our relationships. You and I can actually win, but it's going to take work. But more than just work, it's not a matter of just saying, I'm going to try harder. Instead, it's understanding where you need to put the work in. Make sure you're working at the right things in the first place. Always start with the know. Knowing the person more if you're going to truly work at your relationship. And remember what God says. God says, I'll give you the desire, I'll give you the power to begin to work this model, to begin to win at your relationships. And so this week, put it to work. It'll be well worth the effort.